So what does Mary Magdalene have to do with soul intelligence? Well, the coolest thing is everything, and I can't wait to share it with you. So on Monday, I did post a note about how this book in particular is about finding some lost gospels of Mary Magdalene, right? And the Harvard-trained theologian Megan Watterson is the one who wrote the book. And she reveals a very different love story from the one that we've come to refer to in modern Christianity. And so what I want to share with you is, first of all, I happen to be raised Catholic, and I've always, held the Bible in a sacred way. And I've always been open to learning more about how different characters in the Bible came to be, and looking at different versions like the Gnostic Bible. And I went on a quest in my 20s to try and find what really resonates with me. And so regardless of whether you're Christian or not, or whether you've read these stories or not, I think it's really interesting to think about the relationship between Mary Magdalene and Jesus Christ. And so that's part of what this book explores. The first thing is that there was a gospel of Mary Magdalene, and the book goes in very deeply trying to talk about how it was unearthed, and there's even another gospel of Thomas, that didn't make it into the traditional Bible. But the Mary gospel reveals this radical love that sits at the heart of the Christian story. And her gospel says that we're not sinful, we're not to feel ashamed or unworthy for being human. In fact, it's our purpose to be human, to be a true human. Someone that's remembering that we are a divine, a spark of the divine. We all have a spark of the divine within us, and that we're having this human experience. So yes, we're messy. We have an ego, but the cool thing is we have a limitless soul. And the interesting thing is she talks about ascension, and that ultimately all we have to do is turn inward again and again, meditate like Mary Magdalene did, in the way her gospel directs us, so that we can get past the ego of our own lives to what's more real and lasting and infinite, what we already have within us. So that's one of the reasons why I was so excited to read this book. The author shares how the discovery of Mary's gospel has actually allowed her to practice and to experience a love that never ends, like a love that transforms everything. So one of the major themes in the book is remembering that your true self is your soul, right? And one of the things I talk about is tapping into your soul intelligence. When you're aligned with your mission, your vision, your values, your purpose, and you feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself, that's what I'm talking about, when you are in touch with that piece of who you are. So I also talked to you about how the quantum field works, and everything starts with a thought, right? So we have to start with our IQ, with our imagination, with an intention, and asking what we need. And then more importantly, then you drop into your heart and you feel into what you need, right? And feeling is what magnetizes things from the quantum field to you. So imagine if you just ask for what you need and you receive it within, with that emotion. Can it be that simple? For most of us, even the author acknowledges that the greatest obstacle is believing that you can ever be that powerful. How crazy is that? That we have it within us. We're looking outside of ourselves all the time for validation and for evidence, of our success, when it's actually in here. So to be a true human being is to really unite the ego or self with the soul. And so in the book, to be a true human, it comes into being when you complete that connection that comes between the created world, so all the stuff on the outside, right? Matter, plants, animals, and the creating world, which is within yourself, right? The light, the divine, whatever you want to call that higher power, higher purpose that is there. The human is the middle. So being human is a privilege and a purpose in itself. If you know anything about, to really be that bridge between like the created world and the creating world, the voice of love for the voiceless, like it's the feminine swirl of creation. And that's something that you need to tap into inside yourself, right? We're very good at being very masculine and task driven and oriented, right? And we've been trained to think that everything comes from the outside, when the truth is it actually comes from within. And true ascension is about going inward, like more fully into our own emotions, our own embodiment, and purifying the heart. It's how the quantum field operates. And it's really interesting. I told you everything begins with a thought. We know that. And then it gets magnified by emotions. The reason why emotions are so powerful, right, is that's where everything comes from. The heart, according to, doctors and research and scientists now, they know that the heart actually has a greater energy field than the brain does. So all the time we've been trying to lead with our brains, which we know we only use 5% of with our conscious mind, right? 95% of the mind is subconscious, like driving the bus, and we don't even know what's going on in there. So 5% of the mind, right, we think is so powerful, when the most powerful piece of ourselves is our heart. So let's think about being human, right? It's all about opposites, right? Everything, you think of everything binary that you can, like male, female, light, dark, human, divine, life and death. The union of opposites comes when you've reached a state of consciousness that allows you to integrate them both, right? How many of us are seeking to feel whole or be whole, right? The ego, our own egos, seek to divide and separate, which is important, right? If you want to arrive at work on time, or, write your checks and use that left brain of ours, right, to actually help us move through the world. Or if you want to distinguish yourself as the one to blame or the one who is blameless in the breakdown of a relationship, that's the ego talking. Only ego can define the opposites. The soul knows the union of them both. And it's only the ego that suffers betrayal, right? That's why, beyond words and beyond any need to ever to defend this eternity you hold in yourself, there is no you that can ever be threatened. So it's really exciting. The author brings to light, when you remember that the other half of the story of Christ, that the love can only come to life through us, from within us. You've remembered her, Mary Magdalene, the woman who knew Christ by heart. I just think that sounds so beautiful, right? You've got the divine masculine, the divine feminine embodied in those two individuals. The author does go into the story of the disciples and how Mary, in her gospel, was seen as, really the first disciple, indicating, Christ had a relationship with her beyond what we know in traditional stories about who she really was.